Hello and welcome back to another video in our series on AP English Language and Composition. Today we're going to be going over the prompt approach, or like how to tackle the prompt. Daniel Joy. So first off, so what do you need to do right as you start your response? Well, first, you need to get some things down before you actually start your writing in your response to the prompt. So from the start, you need to start looking for the first part of SpaceCat, or space, which includes speaker, purpose, audience, context, and exigence. Or you could also use SOAP, which is speaker, occasion, audience, and purpose. Whichever of these tools that you choose to use, make sure that you're identifying each of the parts before you begin looking for rhetorical devices or start your actual writing. So for the first couple rhetorical analysis essays that you're going to write, make sure that you're actually writing out the abbreviation vertically and write each component as it's relevant for your prompt next to the letter. So like you would write like SPACE or SOAP, and then you're going to write who the speaker is right next to S, and so on. And for P, like what's the purpose right next to it. So yeah, and so on and so forth. So it might waste some time, but it's definitely worth it, because if you do it, your thoughts are going to actually be organized, and you're not going to have to go looking in the prompt to find the specific components that you've already identified or you will identify. So yeah, and over time you're going to get a lot faster at this, so it's going to continue to be very helpful to you. Over time, you're not going to need to explicitly identify and write each component down physically. So you'll be able to just keep track of it and remember it in your head, and not have to write it down every single time, because you're going to be more comfortable, and your ability to identify each of the components is going to be much better, and you'll be a lot faster as you write more and more rhetorical analysis essays. But for the prompt that we're going to be examining today as an example, I'm going to use SOAP, since we're just looking at the beginning part of it. Okay. So next, you're going to need to determine the thesis of your essay. So the author's thesis, or like purpose, is going to be given to you. So all you need to do is find it. But not only that, you need to adapt it to make it your own, which you can do by including the rhetorical devices that you're going to analyze that the author uses in his or her speech. All right. Third, you're going to actually need to identify some of the rhetorical devices, hopefully the more prominent ones, the ones that are more obvious or relevant, or just more present and effective. Hopefully you'll be able to hopefully you'll be able to find devices that are used multiple times within a close proximity with one another, which you want to be able to do so that you can actually split up and you're not just using random bits and pieces of citation from like the beginning and the end. You want to keep stuff consistent with like the beginning of the speech, or writing the middle and the end, or first half or second half, depending on how many paragraphs you choose to write. Okay, and then with these, you're going to complete your thesis and make sure it's defensible, which we went over, I think, 2 videos ago or 3 videos ago. If you want to reference that, you should be able to find it on the Prestige YouTube videos page, or Prestige ACT channels video page, or Institute's video page. So the first two parts, the space cat or soap and the author's thesis and your thesis can be, which will be made into your thesis, sorry, can be found before you even actually read the article or speech that you're given to analyze. It might be a little confusing at first, but I'll go over more exactly you can find these components before you even read the actual speech or writing. Next. All right, so the prompt. So the prompt I'll be using today as an example to show you guys how to do this is, or to how to approach a prompt is from the 2015 AP English Language and Composition free response section. Is question 2 out of the 3 for that section, and it is rhetorical analysis as you probably expect for the series. So if you want to be able to look at the link or if you want to be able to look at the prompt itself on your own, you can follow the link that I provided, but the link I gave you gives you the actual the full free response section. So if you want to just find the rhetorical analysis prompt, you're gonna just scroll down to page 9, and at the top it should say question 2. And yeah, that you can go there if you want to. Another way you can find that is just searching up 2015 AP Lang rhetorical analysis, which I did to find the link actually. And it should be the second link on the search results. If not, just kind of look around until you can find it, I guess. You'll definitely be able to find it. Yeah, should be there. Okay, so we're gonna click on the link. All right, and then like I said, we're gonna scroll down to page 9. Like here, like I said, question 2. Okay, so this blurb right before the actual speech itself that I'm kind of circling, that's actually probably the most important part of the prompt. Probably, that's debatable, but it's what I'm trying to say is that it's very important to how you approach the question and the essay. Okay, and you might be tempted to just skip over and just go straight into reading because of the time constraints. However, you most definitely cannot do that. You need to make sure that you're actually reading this section every time when you're doing a rhetorical analysis question. All right, so I'll read it out. Scroll in so it's easier to see. On the 10th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., labor union organizer and civil rights leader Cesar Chavez published an article in a magazine of a religious organization devoted to helping those in need. Read the following excerpt from the article carefully. Then, in a well-written essay, analyze the rhetorical choices Chavez makes to develop his argument against nonviolent resistance. All right, so now we're gonna do, like I said, I'm gonna annotate a soap on the side. Oops. Right. Okay, so what we'll do is, like I said, SOAP. All right, so now that you've read this, you're actually able to fill out each of the parts of the soap. So first off, the speaker. The speaker is very clear. It's labor union organizer and civil rights leader, Cesar Chavez. So you can write down if you want. Sorry, I'm writing with the a mouse, so it's a little bit harder to draw, I guess. Okay, so sorry, it's really bad handwriting. But it says labor union organizer and civil rights leader Cesar Chavez. So when you're doing this, you technically you'll be all right if you just write Cesar Chavez. However, I just wanted to make sure that we know his the adjectives, I guess, or descriptions that were given about him, because it also helps you to identify who the speaker really is, what he stands for, and what he actually does, and definitely shows you that he stands for civil rights, and what he does is he organizes labor unions. All right, so the occasion. So it says on the 10th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's he published an article. So I would write 10th anniversary LK assassination article. Okay, so that's the occasion that on the 10th anniversary he published an article. Okay, so the audience. This is also given to us in that he's the blurb identifies that the article was published in a magazine of a religious organization devoted to helping those in need. So the audience, readers of the magazine. I'm not gonna write the whole description of how it's devoted. I'll just write readers of the magazine of religious organization. Yeah, and you could also write how the organization is devoted to helping those in need. I really don't think you even want to see me continuing to write with my mouse, so I'll just leave it at that. All right, and then I'll just redraw the P a little lower down. All right, so the purpose. All right, so now we want to talk the purpose is pretty much always given in the last sentence. It gives you the purpose of the author's the author's purpose, I guess, and why he or she made the speech. And you can pretty much take it word for word almost. So I think typically they'll say, then in a well-written essay, analyze the rhetorical devices. This is whoever the author is makes to develop his argument or her argument about nonviolent resistance. All right, so now you know the purpose. Chavez is, and you would find this out typic or in as you read the speech specifically, but it's typically that he's advocating for non-violent resistance. Boy, handwriting is incredible. All right, so now we can actually read the prompt itself. See if I can hold on to this. Oops. Trying to make sure that we can actually. Sorry, I'm just trying to kind of almost figure out the Zoom annotation to it. All right. All right. So we have that selected. I'm gonna just erase this stuff. All right, and now we're gonna actually read through the prompt itself. Okay, so Dr. King's entire life was an example of power that nonviolence brings to bear in the real world. It is an example that inspired much of the philosophy and strategy of the farm workers' movement. This observance of Dr. King's death gave us the best possible opportunity to recall the principles with which our struggle has grown and matured. Our conviction is that human life is a very special possession given by God to man, and that no one has the right to take it away for any reason or any cause, however just it may be. We are also convinced that nonviolence is more powerful than violence. Nonviolence supports you if you have a just and moral cause. Nonviolence provides the opportunity to stay on the offensive, and that is of a crucial importance to win any contest. If we resort to violence, then one of two things will happen. Either the violence will be escalated and there will be many injuries and perhaps deaths on both sides, or there will be total demoralization of the workers. Nonviolence has exactly the opposite effect. If for every violent act committed against us, we respond with nonviolence, we attract people's support. We can gather with the support of millions who have a conscience and would rather see a nonviolent resolution to problems. We are convinced that when people are faced with a direct appeal with from the poor struggling nonviolently against a great side, against great odds, they will react positively. The American people and people everywhere will still yearn for justice. It is to that yearning that we appeal. But if we are committed to nonviolence only as a strategy or tactic, then it fails. Our only alternative is to turn to violence. And if it fails, our only alternative is to turn to violence. So we must balance the strategy with a clear understanding of what we are doing. However important the struggle is, and however much misery and poverty and exploitation exist, we know that it cannot be more important than one human life. We work on the theory that men and women who are truly concerned about people are nonviolent by nature. These people become violent when the deepest concern they have for for people is frustrated and when they are faced with seemingly insurmountable odds. We advocate militant nonviolence as our means of achieving justice for our people, but we are not blind to the feelings of frustration, impatience, and anger which seethe inside every farmer. Right? The burdens of generations of poverty and powerlessness lie heavy in the fields of America. If we fail, there are those who will see violence as a shortcut to change. It is precisely to overcome these frustrations that we have involved masses of people in their own struggle throughout the movement. Freedom is best experienced through participation and self-determination, and free men and women instinctively prefer democratic change to any other means. Thus, demonstrations and marches, strikes and boycotts are not only weapons against the growers, but are a way of avoiding the senseless violence that brings no honor to any class or community. The boycott, as Gandhi taught, is the most nearly perfect instrument of nonviolent change, allowing masses of people to participate actively in a cause. When victory comes through violence, it is a victory with strings If we beat the growers at the expense of violence, victory would come at the expense of injury and perhaps death. Such a thing would have a tremendous impact on us. We would lose regard for human beings. Then the struggle would become a mechanical thing. When you lose your sense of life and justice, you lose your strength. The greater the oppression, the more leverage nonviolence holds. Violence does not work in the long run, and if it is temporarily successful, it replaces one violent form of power with another, just as violent. People suffer from violence. Examine history. Who gets killed in the case of violent revolution? The poor, the workers. The people of the land are the ones who give their bodies and don't really gain that much for it. We believe it is too big a price to pay for not getting anything. Those who espouse violence exploit people. To call men to arms with many promises, to ask them to give up their lives for a cause and then not produce for them afterwards is the most vicious type of oppression. We know that most likely we are not going to do anything unless the rest of our lives, anything else the rest of our lives except build our union. For us, there's nowhere else to go. Although we would like to see victory come soon, we are willing to wait. In this sense, time is our ally. We learned many years ago that the rich may have money, but the poor have time. All right, so that's just the read through. Because this is just meant for people who just start this because this is meant for people who just started Lang or the rhetorical analysis learning. We'll now start looking for rhetorical devices through a second skim or reading through. When you're more deeper into the course, you'll be able to look for some devices on the first and likely last reading of the speech or prompt, which is what I did which I was doing by like halfway or okay. So now I guess we'll annotate for it. Okay, so an example, the subservice gives. All right, so we see us here, our struggle, our conviction. Okay, so these are all examples of inclusive language. So yeah, that. I think we might be looking to use that if we would do a paragraph on the beginning. We are also convinced that non-violence is more powerful than violence. Violence supports here. This can be an anaphora. It's a bit weak though, but if you really want to stretch, you could definitely do that. Okay, and they said if we resort to violence, then one of two things will happen. So this whole paragraph would be repercussions. It's saying how like the far-reaching effects of if we chose to resort to violence. Violence has exactly the opposite effect. All right, and then these two working together would be a juxtaposition because it's comparing. Sorry, how what happens when you beat. Oh, sorry. So it's juxtaposing violence uh, versus non-violence. I'm gonna try to move this soap stuff again. All right. Okay. Nice. We made it a little bit smaller. I'll just fix the A. And then, all right, nice. Okay. But if you're committed to violence, while you're trying, then fails. Okay, right here. These people become violent when the deep concern they have for people is frustrated, when they are faced by insurmountable odds. All right. Mm, okay, yeah. So that would be called concession. This would be concession. And it says okay, but we're not blind to the feelings of frustration, impatience, and anger. All right, so that would be another concession. So we might want to use that if you want to make a paragraph about the middle part of the essay, or sorry, speech. Okay, I guess this is another repercussion saying what happens if you fail, bad effects, because then people are going to say that them, because if they fail, then people are going to just resort to violence as a shortcut to change. It's precisely the recommendation that involved. I'm kind of struggling to find something. I'm not gonna lie. I guess this would be another repercussion. He's saying what happens if you win with if they have a victory with quote unquote strings attached or the result of violence. The greater the impression, the more leverage non-violence hold. Violence does not work in the long run. And it's examine history. So I guess this is almost an illusion. I'm not gonna write down because it seems kind of weak to use an illusion. Um, what is called? But this is where you ask the speaker asks the question and then responds to their own question. It's called a hypophora, I guess. So excited. All right, right here. Although soon, we are willing to wait. So it's kind of like a call to action almost, because he's telling them that telling the audience that they need to be able to wait to help to make sure that this change happens. So in a sense, all right, and then he ends the speech or the article off on like a very insightful note, I guess. But this is also another call to action. So just looking back on our annotations, I think we would probably use inclusive language for the first body if we're doing 3 bodies. I do repercussions maybe for the middle, but it's like a little bit tough. You can do repercussions because I don't. I guess there's one right in the middle, but I don't know if yeah. You could do repercussions as well for the middle, I guess. But probably concessions would be good. And then right at the end, call to action. So you could maybe talk about how he starts with inclusively. So actually, sorry. So the thesis you can make is that so Chavez uses inclusive language, makes concessions, and calls his audience to action as he uh, advocates for nonviolent resistance as a form of protest. So that would be your thesis, as you've kind of combined the purpose of the speech of the author's purpose of the speech, and then you've also included the rhetorical devices you're going to examine. And then I guess, yeah, that's it for today. Yeah. And then next week we're going to be starting by looking at writing an intro, I believe. So yeah, that's all for today. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below, or you can email me at dechoi101@gmail.com. And thanks for watching.